We're here to talk with Devin and his collection of writings. And I've done a little bit of research, Devin, and I see that you first were published in 1998 with a collection of short stories called Inhumanimal.
Right.
And can you tell us a little bit about that and what the short stories were?
Yeah. Inhumanimal was a collection of short stories from high school and college that were published in some small press magazines like Dead of Night. A lot of horror and fantasy type magazines. So I wrote a story about soul searching, dissecting people to search for the soul, and a lot of metaphorical stories like that to just explore philosophy through horror. It was a collection of stories and poetry, a lot that I'd written, when you're young and experiencing, exploring.
Right. So, are those still available someplace for people to?
Yeah, I think there's still a few on Amazon. There were some in Read More Bookstore, but they closed down now. And you can order it still online through Amazon. I think possibly Barnes and Noble, etc.
All right, that's good. I'm kind of familiar with your blog, which is Blogs from the Barstool, which you can find at your MySpace page, which I believe it's MySpace/Devin Hanson, correct? Or
MySpace.com/Inhumanimal.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
okay, well that's good to know. That's why we're here interviewing you, because I don't have all the answers for everybody, so that's great. I've been reading your blogs for about a year now, and I have to say it's some of the more creative writing. I don't get to do a whole lot of reading personally, but that is something I can come into work and they're normally short, and I can get 10 minutes worth of reading them without the boss knowing, and so I try to go read the blogs every day and see if there's something else posted, and I've found them very entertaining and well written. Sponsored By was published in 2001, and this was your first novel, I take it.
Yeah. It's it's a fictional account of poor babies, being sponsored by corporations because it's a futuristic look at just rampant advertising we have, etc. I mean, I wrote this 6 years ago, and even since then, it's gotten so much more prevalent.
Right.
I was working at a IT company, working in a cubicle when I wrote this, so it's kind of fitting. It's an anti-corporate book that I wrote.
I think what we'll do with Sponsored By is I'm going to read the rest of this novel, and
okay.
we may come back and just have a sit down and we'll tear this thing up and talk about the book some more. I see that you have a couple of works in progress. One of them is a graphic novel, which I'm really interested in, called Our Evolution. And I take it you're just writing the storyline to this? Is there an artist working with you on this thing?
Yeah, this is one of my most exciting projects because just like you pronounced it, Our Evolution. There's like three pronunciations the way we type it out. It's a little R, capital E, evolution. So it can be re-evolution, it can be our evolution, it can be revolution. So I'm teaming up with a friend of mine named John Bivens, a great artist from northern Iowa, and I don't want to jinx it, but we have a major comic book publisher interested in it. What we've done so far is created the synopsis, created the storyline, and the first 5 to 10 pages of artwork, and they've been interested in it. So we're finishing the manuscript, and fingers crossed they're going to pick it up as a graphic novel or as a series. But they are interested. It's basically a another futuristic look at society. Basically, humans have branched off evolutionary. Again, we got one side, the technocrats. They're more the fat, lazy type. They have a mental internet. Just everything's just a thought click away. And then the rest of them are gorilla men. These are people that have somewhat re-evolved more into a primate state where, the world's global warming. There's not many people left, I'm really excited about it, especially just teaming up with John Bivens because he's such a talented artist and he's bringing it to life.
Now, is your background? Are you into science fiction or?
A bit. I'm really into horror, not Stephen King type, but more the fantasy horror. Well, I think they call it speculative fiction. Just imagining a lot of what if.
Right.
Fiction and kind of hyper intensified what might happen in the future. That's what I'm really interested in. But trying to bring in a lot of character, a lot of human emotion into it,
right,
so people can relate to it, as opposed to just being a Battlestar Galactica or a Star Trek.
Sure.
More real with vulgarities.
Right. Well, that's one thing about reading your material is that you're not shy about saying what you feel and expressing no matter what it might be, and to some people they might think that is vulgar, but I believe it just helps to bring the point across, and not only that, you have a unique way of maybe touching on the vulgar side, but you also touch on the most delicate sides of the same issue, I think, in the same pieces sometimes, which I think just makes for such intriguing writing. And
Thank you.
One reason why I'm a big fan already, and you have another novel in the works called Tattoo 60, which I'm a little bit familiar with because I think this is a little bit based off of some of the blogs I've been reading over the past year, and so why don't you tell us a little bit about Tattoo 60? And as you sip a little bit of your gin and tonic there, which is
it's ironic because it's Tattoo 60 was it's funny. It was an experiment. It was an experiment where I spent. I drink a lot, obviously. I'm functional, but it was an experiment in 60 days of sobriety. One day, we've all had those moments where we're just crashing and just thinking our lives out of control and stuff. So I went to an AA meeting one time, and I went in there, and it didn't help me whatsoever. It just made me more cynical and just total bullshit. I mean, I didn't want to stand around and pray to some higher power. I just wanted to figure, this isn't going to happen. It's something that you want to do within yourself. So, I said, that's it. I just quit cold turkey. One day after that, I said, I'm not going to go to any meetings, not going to get any fucking pocket full of sobriety coins. I'm just going to go cold turkey for 60 days. And to mark each one of those days, I got a tattoo for each day. Like I said, because it'd just be more permanent than a pocket full of sobriety coins,
right,
as I say in it. So it was kind of my struggle the first week, which was brutal. I mean, that was hard.
I remember reading the blogs that week, and the blogs were rather brutal too. Yeah. On yourself, and again, I think that's why I find your writing so intriguing, is because you're not afraid to express, even at the cost of your own humility, to get across what you want to say, and to get to the true meaning of what. Obviously you were looking to do something through those 60 days, and it's hard to say without knowing you that well whether you found it at the end of the 60 days, but I thought the journey through those 60 days, reading those blogs, was magnificent. It was sad, it was happy, it was all the emotions it combined in the 60-day period. And
I think the reason that's what's going to be in my book is the epilogue. Everybody that read the blog, they they came through and see how it resulted. Obviously, I drink again now, but it's under control now. And the reason it's under control is through that 60 days, through that experimentation. One of the reasons I was so raw and so honest about it was because, I wanted if somebody else is going through the same thing, I wanted them to relate to it, to know exactly what I was going through. Because if I just sugarcoat it and say, oh well, it's hard today, blah blah blah, the guy who's sitting at home just sweating and just looking at that beer in the fridge, he's going to think that he's worse off than I was. So I wanted to be totally honest and say, hey, this is fucking difficult. I'm suffering here, and this is very hard, going through withdrawal, et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to be honest.
And I think the fact that I remember from reading the blogs too that you did leave a beer in your refrigerator for the 60 days. So, I mean, not only did you do what you wanted to, you tempted yourself every day, and I remember you talking about some of the food that was available for you to eat in the fridge at points, and that it all just seemed nonsense because you kept staring at the beer, but in all reality you didn't drink the beer. So I mean, mission accomplished. It's I can't wait for that novel to come out, because I'm sure that you're going to probably elaborate on the blogs, and again, that's why I got turned on, man, was because of the blogs I'd been reading for the past year and how intriguing everything was. Cool. In the front part of the sponsored by, I noticed that you dedicated the book to a number of people, including your wife and your parents and a few other people. But at the end of that, the book you also dedicated to every person out there determined to reduce and resist. Can you explain what that is a little bit?
Well, it kind of ties along with the whole theme of the book, which we might touch on in the next interview. Just reducing, all our consumption. Not this consumption, but just so much shopping, consumerism. I think it fills a void. Just like, you could say, well, alcohol fills a void in my life. Shopping fills a void in a lot of people's life. You got a bad marriage, you go out and buy a fucking 52-inch screen. You think it's going to help out. Just all this stuff that everybody's searching for something, and I think too much of it is focused on consumerism, and a lot of that comes from advertisement. Mm-hmm. So just reducing. I mean, a lot of things like at home. I mean, I have a television, but we just have bunny ears. So it's all just about moderation. We don't have a big satellite. With bunny ears, you got 3 or 4 channels. That's enough.
Right.
We don't have fancy cars.
Are you a minimalist then? Do you consider yourself a minimalist, or?
Relatively.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many other people that do a lot more than I do, of course. But
right.
I mean, try to just reduce all that. We have so much instant gratification. Credit cards are just the worst. I mean, I don't have any credit cards or anything. I do everything on cash because there's so much instant gratification. You want something, just get it. Like my little daughter, her room is hot. I sleep up there with her. It's brutal up there. But if we had a credit card, I'd go out and get an air conditioning. We'd be fine. But instead, I'm just tucking money away, and eventually we'll get it when we can afford it. Mm-hmm. People that did that in the past, they just seem to be more happy. Because then you're not always digging yourself out of this hole.
Have you ever owned a credit card?
In college, I did.
Yeah.
And I drank up a pretty good bill.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm 43 and I've never had one.
Really?
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I've never had one. That's one of my prouder things I can say about being 43 years old. I also saw that you, the book was dedicated to Chuck Trapkus. I hope, am I saying his name right?
Yep.
And you say who dedicated his life to comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. Can you tell us who Chuck is?
Chuck was he ran back when I was a Catholic, more recovering Catholic. But back then he ran a place called the Catholic Worker House for battered women, etc. The guy was just amazing. I mean, he opened up his house to these women and children and took care of them. And he grew a lot of his own food. The guy made his own clothes. I mean, he was just an absolute minimalist. I mean, just amazing man. And ironically, he died in a car wreck. He was riding with someone in Chicago to see his children. He got in a car wreck, and he was just kind of a big inspiration. Like at his visitation, it was at his Catholic worker house. We protested a lot together, like the Iraqi sanctions before the war,
right,
etc. Anyway, at his visitation, he had just like a plywood, whatever it was, casket. He had an open casket too. It's pretty brutal to look at because he had been in a car wreck.
right.
But I mean, his whole life was just about others and simplifying, and he was like what I loved to be but could never attain. He was just the absolute polarization of
right.
all the basic Americans. Yeah, when I was in high school, David Collins, he passed away too. They have the writers' conference dedicated to him now, but he encouraged me to write. I was in one of his classes in high school. The guy was just really great. I mean, to be honest here, I'd come to class on LSD and stuff and just totally wigged out and just talk to him. And he's like, you just gotta control yourself a little bit more and handle this. And so he helped me just learn how to write. He was a big inspiration. But as far as like regular writers, I love John Steinbeck. I think he was amazing. And John Fonte, just absolutely poetic. Bukowski liked him a lot too. I like Bukowski, but his stuff kind of gets redundant after a while. But Fonte he was incredible. So, and I like Clive Barker a lot too. He's real imaginative. But Grisham and all that, that's just commercial fiction. I don't really get into that.
Right. This is one maybe your grandmother's one reason for this, but obviously you're a politically influenced, and I've noticed it in your writing, and you seem to care about people that are a little under, that they may be underprivileged, and can we just touch base on your political views? Or
sure.
Are you a leftist guerrilla? Are you?
Look,
what do you consider yourself?
Well, I tell people, I write about this too. I tell people I suffer from liberal leprosy. When I was younger, it was hardcore, totally radical liberal. I mean, just way left. Just no meat, no leather, no nothing. And as I've grown older, I've realized that there are some necessary evils. So I consider myself pretty left, socially left, economically right, basically, because I don't like taxes, but I still think everybody should have universal health care, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So I'm sure there's got to be some. Basically, it all comes down to there's got to be some middle ground. I don't like this whole red state, blue state dichotomy. I mean, it comes back to the whole divide and conquer. If the people are divided, it's easier to conquer. They're bickering among themselves. The government can do whatever the fuck they want.
I was doing a web search on you, and I found and I've noticed in some of your writing too, but that you went in front of the city council here in Rock Island for an animal care standards amendment to this Rock Island City Council. Tell me a little bit about that, because in a lot of your writings I've noticed you're a dog lover for sure. I know that about you from your writings, that you love dogs. So tell me what your feelings are about. Are you an animal activist, or?
Well, I was a hardcore animal rights activist in college, but then once I had kids, it's like, man, I got to feed these kids. So now we buy the free range, local meats, etc., that are humanely cared for and slaughtered. But if that's an oxymoron, yeah. But no, really, I worked as an animal cruelty investigator during college as a volunteer. I'd help. It was down at Illinois State. We'd go around because all these college kids, they leave their dogs behind. They got to go back to Chicago. They leave their dogs behind. I remember this one Dalmatian we found. The kids left their apartment. We found this Dalmatian just in the basement, just dead on the top of this guy's laundry. Just waiting for him to come home. And it's just, these people are so selfish. So definitely into animal welfare. I don't believe in dominating animals, etc. We got to, if we're top of the food chain, which I think everybody's equal, but if we're the top of the food chain, we should probably take care of everybody below us.
A search on you, and I happened to find two articles about when you open the Brew and View, and I found 20 articles about when the Brew and View closed. So really, what my question is, it's not about the Brew and View. I want to know what you think that says about media these days, and where media. Do you think
it's all about the agony of defeat? Man. You watch the beginning of Wild World of Sports. You like to see that guy crash down the ski jump, man.
Is that what it is?
You want to see people fail. It doesn't matter. And I failed and I didn't. But I tried. When I started Brew and View, I always said I would rather live with failure than regret. And
Yeah.
So.
I just want to bring up the fact that you're writing for the Quad City View now, a little bit part-time.
Yeah, it's a good paper.
Yeah, I really like it too. And why don't you just touch base, because they've been really friendly to me too. I'm a new guy trying to do something new, and they've been real open with me and what I'm trying to do. So why don't you just put a little plug in for the Quad City View here and tell me what it's like to work for Brando and the fellows down there.
They're good guys. They're trying to start another indie paper. I mean, we've got one independent paper in the Quad Cities, but it's been around for 10, 15 years. So they're young and trying to get a little some avant-garde going. They're covering good music. They're covering a lot of art. And a lot of different things to do in the Quad Cities, and they're not putting as much money into it as they're putting their sweat and blood, sweat, and tears, as we would say.
Right.
And they're doing a lot of good because they really enjoy the Quad Cities. They love the Quad Cities, and they want to see their fellow artists and fellow musicians.
I've noticed that about them too. I love the format of the papers, almost a magazine style format.
It's going to be glossy in a couple weeks.
Is it really?
Or a couple months, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's great. I'm really impressed with what those fellas are doing. It's set up a lot different. It's not like they've come in and tried to copy the paper that has been existing here for a long time, and they are taking a different approach at it. And I think you being on their staff only heightens their persona. And if you get a chance, pick up the Quad City View. I think Devin and I would both agree it's a good up-and-coming newspaper, and not just because he works there or that they've helped me out. We honestly believe that
they're doing good things.
Yes, they are. So, Devin Hanson, ladies and gentlemen, writer, novelist here from the Quad Cities. And Devin, thanks for hanging with us and drinking my shot. You son of a bitch.
That's good.